Hello, beautiful community. Let's quickly do an exercise called Four Dangerous Misconceptions About Putin's War. I've written down the four, so I'll name them and then I'll say just a couple of words about each, and we'll try to do this in under 5 minutes. Is that a deal? Let's give it a go. The first misconception is that we tend to oscillate between thinking that Putin wants to conquer all of Ukraine and thinking that that's an absurd idea because how can he want to do something he obviously cannot possibly do? In reality, what Putin is after is not territorial control over Ukraine, but political control over Ukraine, such that Ukraine is either ungovernable or that it is pro-Russian rather in the way Georgia is pro-Russian now, whatever the population of Georgia happens to think. Putin is after the business of Ukraine's political independence. He is not after the business of total acquisition of Ukrainian territory. Second misconception. We tend to oscillate between the absurd view that Putin will march on Berlin and the view that Putin cannot possibly challenge NATO at all. The reality is that, of course, Putin has no capacity and no interest to engage in a full-scale conflict with NATO. But Putin arguably, and I have made that argument, which I won't repeat here now, has regime security and mystical escalation type reasons to challenge Article 5 later in this decade at the lowest possible threshold, whether in the Baltics or in Finland. And so we've got to pass this properly. On the one hand, when Mark Rutte says the sort of thing he just said, that Britain has to spend more on defense, otherwise we'll all start speaking Russian here, that's absolutely absurd, right? There's absolutely no capacity for the Russian Federation to take physical control over any West European state. It ain't gonna happen. So speaking in these terms actually undermines the sort of argument that I'm making, the sort of argument that Anders Bak-Nielsen makes here on this platform, that short of a full-scale conflict with NATO, Putin is more than capable of ending up in a situation where he's got to challenge Article 5 at some minimal level of threshold. So, full-scale war with NATO, no, but challenging NATO, hoping that NATO will not respond, and therefore that Article 5 will effectively dissolve. We don't think it's already dissolved. Yes, right? So don't go from we'll start speaking Russian to there's no chance of a Russian-NATO conflict, right? The first bit is absurd. The second bit is plausible. The third misconception we've got is that we tend to oscillate between thinking that Putin is rational like us or like Soviet leaders were, rational like Khrushchev or Brezhnev, or that he's mad Vladimir. In reality, Putin is rational in the sense that he is thoughtful, he is reasonably well informed with big gaps and big, holes where he suffers from illusions and delusions, but is in many respects well informed. He's very thoughtful. He is rigorous and instrumentally dogged in the way he thinks. He's intellectually superior to most Western leaders in the way he thinks about his plans and what he hopes to happen, how it might be brought about. So he's rational in that sense, but he's not rational in the sense of rationality that you might find in an economics textbook. That's to say, Putin is motivated by mystical visions about himself, about Russia, about world history. So he does not share our values, but a apart from not sharing our values, he is rational. However, what we typically do is confuse the idea of somebody being rational with the idea of them being rational and sharing our values. Putin doesn't. Putin does not have the same relationship with the value of preserving life that you and I do, including one's own. Hence, there is an apocalyptic, a dangerously apocalyptic element to the Kremlin regime. So, rationality in the sense that he is consistent and clear in the way he tries to pursue his goals, yes. Rationality in the sense that he shares our values and wants to maximize economic growth or maximize some other kind of markers of stability or prosperity, no. No. So, yes and no. We've got to be able to say the two simultaneously without our brains melting down. Fourth, we tend to oscillate between thinking that Putin is all powerful and that he's got days left in power. Just open the Times Radio YouTube page, look at their thumbnails. Putin has 17 seconds left in power. Putin has 11 seconds left in power. Putin has basically lost power, but it hasn't quite materialized, but it's going to happen any second now. I'm teasing, but that's roughly the direction. The truth is that, and it's keeping two things in mind that matters here. And we've completely gone past 7 minutes. Let's aim for 8. Putin is stabler in power than it's been at any point during the war right now. That's true. But it's also true that the very nature of the regime Putin presides over means it is a regime that is capable of going from stability to dissolution in 6 months. And the Prigozhin mutiny demonstrated that. So here are the 4 unfortunate misconceptions, and here's my brief attempt to clarify them. Lots of love.